The spice industry has been lying to you about paprika, and I'm going to prove it with $1 and a pepper. Here's what happens. You go to the store. You buy a small jar of paprika. You get home and you open it and you smell it. And you know what? It barely smells like anything. It looks dusty. It looks like someone ground up old fence posts and called it a spice. And that is because the paprika sitting on grocery store shelves across this country has been sitting there for months, sometimes years, before it ever reaches that jar on the shelf. By the time you get it home, the essential oils that give paprika its color and flavor have oxidized and evaporated into nothing. You are paying money for almost nothing, and you do not even realize it because the industry has spent decades training you to accept this. They have convinced an entire generation of home cooks that paprika is supposed to be bland, that a pinch of reddish dust is all you need, that the vibrant, deep, smoky flavor of real paprika is something you only get in restaurants or specialty shops where they charge you 3 times the price. I am here to tell you that none of that is true, and I am going to show you how to make the purest, most vibrant, most flavorful paprika you have ever tasted right in your own kitchen for about $1. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why the spice industry hates that you know this. Now, my name is Sue Ellen, and if you are new here, I want to welcome you and tell you right away that I am going to teach you something today that your grandmother knew and that the food industry does not want you to remember. If that sounds useful, hit that subscribe button because I have got a lot more where this came from. And leave me a comment down below and tell me what your favorite spice is, because I read every single one and I love hearing from you. Alright, let's talk about paprika, the stuff in the jar that costs $4 or $5 for a small tin. What is actually in there? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most commercial paprika is made from a specific variety of pepper called a paprika pepper, which is a type of Capsicum annuum. That part is fine. The problem is not the pepper. The problem is what happens after they pick it. Commercial spice companies buy paprika peppers in massive bulk from places like Spain, Peru, India, and California. Those peppers get dried, often at high temperatures that speed up the process but destroy the volatile compounds, and then they get ground into a fine powder. That powder then gets stored in giant warehouses, sometimes for a year or more, before it ever gets packaged. And during that time, the color fades. The flavor compounds, which include things like capsanthin and capsorubin, those are the carotenoids that give paprika its deep red color and its sweet, smoky flavor. They break down when exposed to heat and oxygen. And by the time that jar lands on a grocery store shelf, you are getting maybe 30% of what a fresh ground paprika would give you. And here's the part that really gets me. That jar you are buying for $4.50, the actual cost of the paprika inside it, the raw material, is probably less than 20 cents. The rest of that price is processing, packaging, marketing, distribution, and profit margins. You are paying $4.50 for a product that costs them less than a quarter to make. And the reason you are doing that is because they have successfully convinced you that there is no other option. I learned about this from my mother-in-law, Opal. Opal grew up in the Depression, and she knew things about stretching a dollar that I am still learning from her to this day. She used to grow her own paprika peppers in the garden and dry them on screens in the attic. I thought it was old-fashioned when she first showed me. I did not understand why she did not just buy it at the store like everyone else. And then one day she made a goulash with her homemade paprika, and I tasted the difference. And I never went back to the store-bought stuff again. That was 15 years ago, and I have been making my own paprika ever since. The cost is about $1 per batch. The flavor is so far beyond what you get in any jar that it is not even a contest. So let me show you exactly how to do this. You are going to need 3 things, and none of them are expensive. First, you need fresh paprika peppers. Now, where do you get them? If you live somewhere warm, you can grow your own. and I will tell you more about that in a minute. If you do not grow them, you can buy them at a farmer's market in the late summer and early fall. Look for small, sweet peppers that are bright red. The variety matters less than the freshness. You want peppers that are still firm, that have no soft spots, and that have a deep, rich color. If you are buying from a farmer's market, ask the farmer what variety they are, but honestly, the variety is less important than the freshness. What you are looking for is a pepper that was picked within the last day or two, not something that has been sitting in a cold storage crate for 2 weeks. The second thing you need is a food dehydrator or an oven set to its lowest temperature. And the third thing you need is a spice grinder or a mortar and pestle. That is it, 3 things: fresh peppers, heat, and something to grind them with. The total cost, if you are buying your peppers at a farmer's market, is about $1. I have paid as little as 50 cents for a big bag of peppers at the end of the season when vendors are trying to move their stock. Now, step 1. You take your fresh paprika peppers. Give them a rinse and let them dry completely on a kitchen towel. This is important. If your peppers have any moisture on them when you put them in the dehydrator, they will steam instead of dry, and you will lose that crispy, brittle texture you need for grinding. So let them sit out for an hour or 2 until they are completely dry to the touch. While you are waiting, set your dehydrator to 135 degrees Fahrenheit. If you are using an oven, set it to the lowest possible temperature, which is usually around 170 degrees. But if your oven does not go that low, set it to 200 degrees and leave the door cracked open with a wooden spoon wedged in it. That will let the moisture escape and keep the temperature low enough that you are not cooking the peppers. You are just drying them slowly. Step 2. Once your peppers are dry, cut off the stems. You do not need to remove the seeds, by the way. The seeds have a lot of flavor and they add a subtle heat that works beautifully in most dishes. If you want a milder paprika, you can remove the seeds, but I keep them in because I like the depth they give. Cut each pepper in half lengthwise and lay them out on your dehydrator trays in a single layer. You do not want them overlapping because that will cause some peppers to dry faster than others, and you will end up with uneven results. Slide the trays into your dehydrator and set it for about 6 to 8 hours. Check them after 4 hours and then again after 6. You are looking for peppers that are completely dry, crispy, and brittle. If they still have any flexibility, any softness at all, they need more time. The test is simple. Take one pepper and try to snap it. If it snaps clean with a crisp sound, it is done. If it bends without breaking, it is not ready. Under-dried peppers will go moldy in storage. Over-dried peppers will lose some of their color, but that is less of a problem than under-drying. So when in doubt, err on the side of more time. Now once your peppers are completely dry, let them cool to room temperature. Do not rush this part. If you grind them while they are still warm, you will create condensation inside your grinder, and that moisture will ruin your paprika before you even use it. Let them cool for about 30 minutes on a clean plate or tray. Step 3. This is where the magic happens. Take your dried peppers and feed them into your spice grinder. Now, if you have a dedicated spice grinder, use that. If you are using a coffee grinder that you also use for spices, make sure it is clean and completely dry. I use a small electric spice grinder that I bought for $15, and it has lasted me 6 years so far. Working in small batches, add your dried peppers and grind them for about 30 to 45 seconds. You will see the peppers break down into a fine, vibrant red powder. The color at this stage should be striking. I mean, if your peppers were deep red when they were fresh, your ground paprika should be almost the same shade. If it looks brownish or faded, your peppers were either not fresh enough to begin with, or they were dried at too high a temperature. That is why I keep my dehydrator at 135 degrees. It is low enough to preserve those beautiful carotenoid pigments that give paprika its signature deep red color. Once you have ground your paprika, Sift it through a fine mesh strainer to remove any large pieces of stem or seed that did not get fully ground. Those pieces are fine to eat. They are just a little gritty, and you want your paprika to be smooth and silky. The pieces that do not pass through the strainer, by the way, toss them into your next pot of soup or stew. They still have flavor and they will dissolve into the liquid nicely. Now here's the most important part: storage. This is where most people go wrong, and this is where the industry actually has a lesson to teach us, and not in a good way. Commercial paprika comes in jars with lids, and people put it in their pantry and use it for 6 months or a year, and the whole time it is losing potency. Every time you open that jar, you are exposing the paprika to oxygen and humidity. Every month that goes by, the color fades a little more and the flavor gets a little duller. By the time that jar is half empty, you have essentially been cooking with flavored dust. So here is what you do instead. Take your freshly ground paprika and put it in a small glass jar with a tight-fitting lid. A mason jar works perfectly. Fill it almost to the top, but leave about ½ inch of airspace at the top. Then take a small piece of tape and write the date on it and stick it on the jar. Yes, the date, because you are going to use this within 3 to 4 months. Not 3 years, 3 to 4 months. The beauty of making your own paprika is that it takes 30 minutes of active time and costs about $1. So when you are running low, you make more. It becomes a routine, like making your own stock or your own breadcrumbs. You are not locked into buying a jar that will sit in your pantry for 2 years and slowly die. You make a small batch. You use it. You make another batch. Now, where should you store it? In the freezer. I know that sounds strange, but hear me out. Freezing paprika, or any ground spice for that matter, dramatically slows the oxidation process. The cold temperature and the lack of humidity inside a sealed freezer bag or jar will keep your paprika vibrant and flavorful for months longer than pantry storage. I keep mine in a small mason jar inside a Ziploc freezer bag in my freezer. When I need paprika, I take the jar out, scoop out what I need with a small measuring spoon, and put it right back in the freezer. The jar never stays out of the freezer long enough to condense moisture on the inside. This method has kept my paprika fresh and colorful for up to 6 months, and the flavor is still remarkable. That is longer than any store-bought paprika will stay good, and it tastes infinitely better because it was made from fresh peppers that were dried at low temperature and ground the same week you made it. Let me address the elephant in the room right now. Why does the spice industry hate this video? Why do they not want you making your own paprika? Because once you know how easy and cheap it is, you stop buying their product. It is that simple. A 4-ounce jar of commercial paprika costs about $4.50 to $6 depending on the brand. You can make the same amount, actually a better product, for about $1.30 of your time. And if you grow your own peppers, the cost drops to almost nothing. The spice industry makes billions of dollars a year selling people spices that have been degraded by time and temperature, and then marketed as premium products. They count on you not knowing how to make your own. They count on you thinking that good paprika requires special equipment or hard-to-find ingredients or skills you do not have. None of that is true. My mother-in-law, Opal, who had a 6th grade education and grew up on a farm during the worst economic depression this country has ever seen, made her own paprika every single year. If she could do it, you can do it. And once you taste the difference, you will wonder why you ever settled for the jar. So what can you use your homemade paprika for? Everything. Paprika is one of the most versatile spices in any kitchen. I use it in my tomato sauces, my chili, my goulash, my roasted chicken rub, my deviled eggs, my potato salad, my roasted vegetables, my shrimp cocktail seasoning, my homemade chorizo, and because the flavor is so much stronger than store-bought, you use less and get more impact. Where a recipe calls for a teaspoon of commercial paprika, I use ½ a teaspoon of my homemade, and the flavor is deeper and more complex. This is especially true when you make what is called smoked paprika, which I will cover in a separate video, but I will give you a preview right now. If you take your dried peppers and smoke them over wood chips for an hour before you grind them, you get a smoked paprika that is absolutely extraordinary and that you cannot buy in any store for any price. It costs you almost nothing, and it elevates any dish you put it on into something that tastes like it came from a professional kitchen. The thing about paprika that nobody talks about is that there are different grades and different qualities, and the industry uses that confusion to their advantage. When you buy a jar of paprika, you are not really told what you are getting. Are you getting sweet paprika, smoked paprika, hot paprika, or just generic paprika? And what does each of those mean? In Spain, the La Vera region produces a smoked paprika called Pimentón de la Vera that is dried over oak wood and has a deep, smoky complexity that is unlike anything else. In Hungary, there is a tradition of making fresh paprika paste from peppers that are pureed and cooked down with oil and vinegar, which creates a product with an intensity that no dry spice can match. In the American South, there is a tradition of using paprika in spice rubs for barbecue that goes back generations. None of these traditions require you to buy a jar from a company. They require you to understand what paprika can be and how to make it yourself. My mother used to say that the food industry treats you like a walking wallet. And she was right, and I want you to hear me say that again. They treat you like a walking wallet. They have spent decades engineering products that cost them almost nothing to make and selling them to you at massive margins. And they have done it so successfully that people actually believe that $4 for a small jar of dusty, flavorless spice is just the way it is. It is not the way it is. It is a choice they made, and you do not have to go along with it. You can make your own paprika. You can make your own spices. You can take control of your own pantry and your own food budget, and it does not require a special skill set or expensive equipment. It requires a pepper, a dehydrator, and 20 minutes of active work. That is it. I have been doing this for 30 years. I learned it from my mother, and my mother learned it from hers, and we have been keeping this knowledge alive in our family because we know that it matters. Not just because it saves money, though it does, and it saves a lot of it, but because real food that is made with care and attention and knowledge, is better. It tastes better, it is better for you, and it connects you to a tradition of self-sufficiency that the industrial food system has been trying to erase for 100 years. So here is my challenge to you. Next time you are at a farmer's market, buy a bag of fresh paprika peppers. Take them home, dry them, grind them, taste the difference, and then come back here and tell me in the comments what you think. I want to hear about your experience. I want to know if you noticed the difference the way I did when Opal first made her goulash all those years ago. And if you know someone who is tired of paying too much for spices that do not deliver, share this video with them. Send it to your sister, your neighbor, your friend who is always complaining about grocery prices. This is information that changes lives. It changed mine, and it can change yours too. If you found this video useful, subscribe. And if you want to see more videos like this one where I show you how to make the things you buy at the store yourself for a fraction of the price and with a fraction of the quality loss, then hit that subscribe button and hit the bell so you get notified every time I post. I have got a whole series on homemade spices coming up, including smoked paprika, chili powder, curry powder, and a homemade garam masala blend that will absolutely blow your mind. All of them cost under $2 to make, and all of them are infinitely better than what you can buy in any store. Until next time, I am Sue Ellen, and I will see you in the next video.